Welcome to a study on human evolution. In this study, I'll be exploring the evidence of common ancestors for living hominids, including human beings. So, to set the ball rolling, let us explore some conceptual questions. So, first and foremost, what is evolution? So, simply put, evolution refers to a change in characteristics of species over time. And that is the basic definition of evolution. Then we also try and find out the following. What is human evolution then? Human evolution is a biological and cultural development and change of great apes into modern humans. So that is the basic definition of human evolution. Then we look at some key facts about the evolutionary relationship among all living things. So over here, what do we have? Organisms are sorted according to their similarities and differences. And that is one basic criteria we need to know. And the assumption is that all organisms share a common ancestor. And the reason is because they share similar characteristics. Another word for characteristics is the word phenotypes. Okay, then we go on to the following question. Why do most organisms appear similar? Why do most organisms appear similar? So the first reason is that the reason they appear similar, or the reason they have similar characteristics or phenotypes is because they share similar genes. They share similar genes for for those phenotypes, and which they have inherited from the evolutionary common ancestor. That is one. All organisms therefore share similar characteristics or phenotypes, and the reason is because they share a common ancestor, and that is the basic reason. So why do all organisms appear similar? Is because they share similar genes for those similarities which they have inherited from their common ancestor. Then we look at the next question. Why do the same organisms appear different? So why do same organisms appear different? So the reason is this. Organisms appear different due to adaptation to a new or a different environment, or it is in response to a useful mutation. Then we go on to the next one. Why did humans appear on Earth? How did humans appear on Earth? So, according to modern science, humans appeared on Earth through biological evolution. Take note, we don't just say evolution, we say biological evolution. Then, from what did humans evolve from? From what did humans evolve from? According to modern science, humans evolved from great African apes. According to modern science, humans evolved from great African apes. Those are the basic questions. To which family of apes do humans belong to? Okay, so to which family of humans do humans belong? According to modern science, humans belong to the family Hominidae. So that is the name of the family to which humans and apes actually belong to. Our family is called Hominidae. And this is a simple phylogenetic tree of the animal kingdom. It's a chart showing our place in the animal kingdom. So that is it. Humans are vertebrates. We belong to the class mammals. We belong to the order primates and the suborder Anthropoidea, and then the family Hominidae. The Hominidae family consists of orangutans, gorillas, chimps, and humans. Okay, so that is that. Now, what are members of the Hominidae family called? The members of the Hominidae family are called hominids. So the hominids includes humans, chimpanzees, orangutans, bonobo, and gorilla. So those are the members of the hominidae family. Mostly in exam, they will state like, apart from humans, name any member of the hominidae family. All right, so that is the biological classification of humans within the family Hominidae. So if you look carefully, the family to which we belong to is called Hominidae. We are part of the chimpanzees, the gorillas, and the orangutans. And then human beings or modern humans are called Homo sapiens. Take note, modern humans are called Homo sapiens. The Homo is a genus name, and the sapien refers to the species name. Now check here, we have genus and species names of hominids. So in this particular phylogenetic tree, we have the members of the family Hominidae represented here. And if you observe carefully, you will notice that they all carry two names. They are all called by two names. The first name starts with a capital letter. The second name starts with a smaller letter. Similar to our modern form of nomenclature, we have the first name and the surname. But then over here, when it comes to human evolution, the first name is actually the surname. The second name is actually their real name. But then there is a slight difference. In evolution, we focus on two things. That is the genus name and the species name. And that's what you are seeing here. So what are we looking at? You can see, let's start from the bottom with Australopithecus anamensis. So the first name is anamensis. What does this anamensis represent? Anamensis represents the genus name. And then what about the anamensis? So Australopithecus is the genus name. What about the anamensis? The anamensis represents the species name. Take note, the genus name always starts with a capital letter, and the species name always starts with a lower case letter. So if you check all the names here, we have different names. For example, we have here Paranthropus boisei. Paranthropus is the genus name. Boisei is the species name. We have Homo sapiens. Homo is the genus name. Sapien is the species name, and that is the purpose of those two part names that they are given. All right, so let's go on to the next phase. So again, we have another situation here. We have Adipithecus ramidus. Now I want you to try your hands on the following. What does Adipithecus represent? Um, what does it represent? What does Adipithecus represent here? So you need to know. Okay, I hope you got it correct. Adipithecus represent the genus name. What about Remidus? It represents the species name. Okay, so what is the scientific name for modern humans? This is what you need to know. Simple answer. Humans are called Homo sapiens. That is the name for all humans, black or white, Indian, Chinese, tall, short. If the person is human, his or her scientific name is Homo sapien. What is a phylogenetic tree? So a phylogenetic tree is a branching diagram or tree showing the evolutionary relationship among various biological species. This is an important terminology for paper 2 that you need to know. Then we go on to phylogenetic tree. It depicts two types of ancestors. So we have ancient ancestor. Who is an ancient ancestor? This is an ancestor who lived a very long time ago, often millions of years ago in the past. And this is our relationship to such an ancestor. They are more distantly related. That is, we share many other species with that ancestor. The second type of our evolutionary ancestor depicted mostly on phylogenetic tree is the recent ancestor. So we have the ancient ancestor and then we have the recent ancestor. What is a recent ancestor? This is an ancestor who lived in the relatively recent past, usually tens of thousands or tens of hundreds of thousands of years ago. So we have ancestors that lived millions of years ago, and then we have ancestors that lived hundreds of thousands of years ago. What is our relationship to the recent ancestor? To the recent ancestor, we are more closely related. And in many cases, only specific species are related to it. We don't have all species relating to it. So if we take a phylogenetic tree, for example, like what you have on your screen, let us establish the relationship. So we have cats and dogs. So if you look at cats and dogs, they are closely related. And because they are closely related, they will share similar characteristics. And the reason why they will share similar characteristics is because they share a common ancestor. That's ancestor there. And because of that ancestor, they share similar characteristics. Rats and mouse, or rat and mouse, okay, they are also closely related. And their relationship or their close relationship allows them to share similar phenotypes. And because of that, they share a common ancestor. Now, let's put all of them together. Cats, dogs, rats, and mouse, they are all closely also related. And the reason is because they all share a common ancestor. That is the one labeled as root, the individual labeled as root. So this is actually the common ancestor of cat, dog, rat, and mouse. This ancestor here is related to this ancestor, okay, because they both share a common ancestor. But then the offspring of this ancestor, they will look slightly different from the offspring or the descendants of this ancestor. Hence, cat and dog, they are more related because they share a common ancestor. But then they are distantly related to rat and mouse because all the four, they share a common ancestor at the part labeled as root. So if you take a phylogenetic tree, you will discover it consists of time, okay, and you have to check the unit of measurement. Over here, time is measured in millions of years ago, and then we need to know the bottom starts from 55 million years ago, and that is A. A is the common ancestor that existed 55 million years ago. It is from this ancestor that we have all these individuals here: humans, chimpanzee, gorilla, orangutan, gibbon, etc. Now, each evolved differently along the timeline. So if you look carefully, what do we have here? If you want to know what evolved here, 20 million years ago, what evolved? Well, baboon was baboon. Baboon evolved 20 million years ago. How did they evolve? They evolved through speciation. So that is it. Baboons evolved through speciation. And then their existence is measured around 20 million years ago. Giving the number gives you 1 mark. Writing MYA also gives you 1 mark. Then it goes on and on. For a new species to appear, it does so through speciation event. So wherever there is a branching away, that branching away was made possible or occurred by speciation. During speciation, a new species is formed. Because the word species is actually singular. So we have speciation occurring at sea. That speciation occurred 10 million years ago, and it led to the formation of a new organism, that is the orangutan. Speciation also occurred at B, and that speciation occurred between 10 and 20 million years ago, and it led to the formation of gibbon. And again, our speciation, okay, along the line led to the formation of humans. Organisms that are within the line of speciation, that is, organisms that are along this line, they look so similar. Once the line branches, the organism on this line and this line, they are going to look different because speciation has occurred. Speciation is the formation of new species. All the organisms along this line, they are going to look similar. They will always appear similar. But then once the line branches away, the organisms start looking different. All right, so we go on. Human beings evolved 5 million years ago, and our speciation led to our appearance. Around that same time, another species appeared, that was chimpanzees and bonobo. So what can we learn from this? Humans and chimpanzees are closely related. What is the reason? It's because they share a common ancestor. The name of the ancestor is not given. And then we have the second part. Humans are distantly related to gorilla. So if you look at gorilla existed 10 million years ago. They evolved far before us. And the reason why we are distantly related to gorillas is because we share a common ancestor also, an ancient common ancestor, which is C. Good. Now let's go on to the classification of the hominid family, the hominidae family. So over here, we have to know classification is based on two things, similarities and differences. Organisms that share the same genus, as you're about to see here, organisms that share the same genus, they share many similar characteristics. And organisms that are actually having the same different species, those organisms, they are different, and they are different due to variation in their characteristics. Hominids with different species name within the same genus are very different species of hominids within that genus. If the lineage, or that's a vertical line, does not reach the top of the line, then the species become extinct. So if you check here, this is the common ancestor, and there is a split here, meaning a new species appeared, speciation occurred. It led to the formation of chimpanzee. Then the species actually appear different from the common ancestor, but then something new formed, and then the new thing that formed also splitted, and it led to the formation of adaptations. Now check the last statement. It said if the lineage, or if the lineage line does not reach the top of the tree, then the species become extinct. So if you check here, if you look at adaptations, you can see the line here, this vertical line is very short. It did not reach the top. It's supposed to reach the top. It didn't reach the top. If it doesn't reach the top, we say adaptations has become what? Extinct. Same thing applies to Paranthropus robustus. The line did not reach the top. If the line does not reach the top, it means they are extinct. Paranthropus boci, same thing. Australopithecus gahi, the line did not reach the top. It means they are extinct. Homo erectus, you see the line, the vertical line is short because they have become extinct. Homo habilis do the same. Homo Neanderthals. For chimpanzee, the line reached the top. Once the line reaches the top, it means they are still alive. They are still existing. If the line is short, it means they are what? Extinct. Now, there is something we need to explore here, which is very important. So you can see there are different organisms, different species here, and there are some with the same name, some with different name. So if you check here, if you look inside this box, you're going to observe we have Australopithecus gahi, Australopithecus africanus, Australopithecus afarensis, and Australopithecus anamensis. You see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. All of them, they share the same first name. The first name is the genus name, and they all have similar genus name. And you need to know hominids with the same genus names share very similar characteristics. Why are they sharing the same genus name? They share the same genus name because they have similar characteristics. It means they all also came from a common ancestor. But then if you check again, their second names are not the same. Only their first names are the same. If their second names are different, it means they are different species because the second name represents species name. So check here, hominids, let's go here, hominids with different species names within the same genus are different species of hominids within the genus. So this is one genus. The genus is called Australopithecus. Under this genus, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 species. The second name is called a species name. We have Gahi, which is a species name, Africanus, which is a species name, Afarensis is also a species name, Anamensis is also a species name. So in the genus Australopithecus, there are 4 species. That is what you need to know. So we have 4 species in one genus. And then if you go on again, let's look at another genus. This is another genus. So if you look at this genus, again, just like before, you can see all these individuals, they share the same genus. The first names are the same, that's the genus. But then the second names are different. Bullseye, and then Robustus, and then Ethiopicus. You see the second names are different. So over here we have one genus. The genus is called Paranthropus. And then the second name, that's the species name, there are 3 of them. So there are 3 species, 1 genus. So this is the second genus so far. The first genus is Australopithecus. The second genus we call Paranthropus. Then we go on again. Yes, we go to the top part. Now the top part, we have Homo sapiens, Homo erectus, Homo habilis, Homo neanderthalis. Take note, they all share a common name. That name is Homo. Homo is a genus name. But then the second names are different. We have sapien, neanderthalis, habilis, and erectus. The second name represents the species name. Why do they share the same genus name? They share the same genus names because they share similar characteristics. Why do they have different second name? The second name represents the species name. Why do they have different species name? They have different species names within the same genus because they are very different. So if you look here on top, we can see we have chimpanzee. They are called pantroglodytes. That is a scientific name for chimpanzee. That's their name. Then at the bottom here, we have Adipithecus ramidus, only one individual. So in this chart, how many genus do we have here? Can you guess how many genus do we have here? This is one genus, one genus, one genus. There is one genus here, there's one genus. So over here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 5 genera here. How many species do we have? You have to count 1, the second name, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So there are 13 species name, and that is what is displayed here. So this phylogenetic tree consists of 5 genera and 13 species name. So that is how you interpret this tree. The longer the line, the more existing the organism. The shorter the line, that means the organism is extinct. Good. All right. So we go on to this a cladogram of species. Let's try and understand what's going on here. So over here, you can see the line is actually going up, and then there's a split here. Same way, there's a split here. What's the meaning? So this is the meaning where a species has split split into two different species. This is known as speciation event. So what caused this line to branch to A and B? This line branched into A and B because speciation occurred here. Speciation also occurred here. Speciation also occurred here. And speciation occurred here. All right. Then over here, what happens? Over time, some species have remained what? Alive. And then if the species remain alive, we say they are what? Extant. And then others have died off. If they die off, that means they have become extinct. So species that are no longer existing, we say they are extinct. And those that are still there, we call them extant. So cladogram shows two events. We have extinction, and then we have extant species. If the lineage line does not reach the top of the tree, then the species become extinct. So that is it here. You can see A, B, C, D, they all got to the top. The lines are long, they all reach the top. That means the species are alive. If it doesn't reach the top, that means they are extinct. The longer the line of lineage, the more unchanged the species has remained. So from here, you can see the line actually um, from here, you can actually see the line goes all the way up. That means they remain the same. There's no speciation taking place. From here to here, the species remain the same until speciation occurred and the organism changed and became B. B is different from A, but then they share a common ancestor here. However, something happened and some of A's offspring changed into B. So over here, there was a population of organisms. Some remained A. A started from the bottom. Some remained A. Some also became changed to become B. And what caused this is actually speciation events. All right, so explain why some members of the Hominidae family share the same first names. So here is the answer. Reason for this shared name is because they belong to the same genus, and since the first name represents the genus name. And then it goes on to say, as such, they have similar characteristics, and therefore they are closely related. And the reason is since they share a common ancestor. So the second question is talking about explain why some members of the Hominidae family use different first names. So why are some called Paranthropus and others are called Australopithecus? So the reason is because they belong to different genus. Since the first name represents genus name, and then it is due to the differences in their characteristics as a result of their adaptation to a new or different environment, or it could be due to a useful mutation. Let's look at this. Explain why some members of the same genus name use different second names. The reason is this. Explain why some members of the same genus name use different second names. The reason is because they belong to different species. And since the second name represents the species name, due to the differences in their characteristics. And then what do you have here? And this is due to or as a result of speciation into distinct species. So make sure you take your revision documents and refer to the following pages if you have your package, the old package or the new one. Check your revision document and your comprehensive package. Go to these pages and there are questions related to what we have done so far. Now we'll go on to another aspect that deals with explaining the evolutionary relationship between humans and great apes. Now here we have to prove why evolution claims we are related to apes. If we're related to apes, there are two ways we can observe it. So we can only explain it using the similarities and then the differences. You can explore your notes or your textbooks. All right, so we go on to the next phase. Over here, what do we have? There are some basic questions. Why is it important to use the anatomical similarities and differences? In evolution, the differences and the similarities are commonly used. And the question is, why? Why are those things being used? Um, it is because, one, the differences point to the existence of different species due to adaptation to a new environment or maybe a useful mutation occurred. The similarities suggest that the organisms share a common ancestor. All right, so we have to look at the evidence that supports human evolution. Since we have looked at the similarities and the differences, what evidence supports human evolution? So when it comes to human evolution, not general evolution, there are three. One, fossil record, genetic evidence, and then we have cultural evidence. These are the three evidence that support human evolution only. The evolution of dogs, the evolution of tigers, the evolution of mango plants, the evolution of microorganisms will require other evidence. Cultural evidence is the only evidence associated with human beings because we are the inventors of culture. Animals cannot invent a culture. So that is why cultural evidence is exclusively, especially connected to human evolution. Now let us look at the similarities between African apes and humans. What are the similarities between African apes and humans? So when a question is about similarities, it can be structured in two ways. One, either you state the similarities or you list them, and two, you have to explain it. So sometimes the question will say simply list or state the similarities, and then sometimes they will say explain the significance of these similarities. So we're going to look at both as we move on. So here are the similarities between humans and apes. So first and foremost, if you look carefully, you can see for starting from the top, humans and apes, we both have large brains. Our eyes are in front. Our arms rotate freely. Our upper arms are long. Rotation around the elbow joints. We have bare fingertips or nails instead of claws. We have opposable thumb, and then we have upright posture. So that is being bipedal. So that's the explanation for our similarity. That is similarity between African apes and humans. All right, then we go on to, after looking at the similarities, now we have to look at our differences, anatomical differences between African apes and humans. So remember, we need evidence to support this. We need fossil evidence. That's the only thing you can use in your defense. So what are some of the evidence that are actually outlined? By on your screen, we have humans and apes. You can tell a human skeleton from that of an ape or a gorilla or a chimpanzee, and you should be able to analyze every single part of it, and you will be able to notice the difference. So here is a table explaining the differences between African apes and humans. So we have the feature or the phenotype or the characteristics or the trait. Cranium, humans have large cranium or brain size. African apes, theirs are small. For broad reach, humans, ours is not well developed. For African apes, theirs are well developed. For the spine, ours is S-shaped or more curved. African apes, theirs are C-shaped or less curved. Pelvic ours is short and pelvic and wide. Okay, uh, and then for theirs, they are long and narrow. Canines, ours, they are small, and then for African apes, they are large. Pellet shape, ours is small and semicircular. Theirs long and rectangular. Jaws, small jaws. In the case of African apes, large. Then our jaws, they are less protruding, or ours are less prognathous. For theirs, they are more protruding or more prognathous. Cranial ridge, there are no cranial ridges there. Then we have cranial ridge across the top of the cranium and the hips. For humans, the foramen magnum is forward in position. Don't say centralized, okay? We say it is forward. And then for African apes, it is actually backward. So you have to memorize. And anytime they say state the differences, you just have to draw a table and then you can get it on and on with it. When you draw a table, you get a mark, which is very, very important. So let us analyze the skull only. Sometimes the question is only about the skull. So on your screen, we have two skulls. You must know the skull of human and the skull of non-human. So definitely, if we ask you which skull is this one, you should be able to tell that is human. This one is not human. It can belong to a chimpanzee or it can belong to a gorilla. All right, then what do we do next? So over here, they both have something in common. They both have a cranium. So both skulls, you can see there's a cranium there to house the brain. Then if you examine the cranium critically, you will see that there's something there that is a cranial ridge. And then for humans and for apes, they both possess what we call the brow ridge. You can actually tell the difference between their brow ridges. You can see one is not well developed, one is very, very developed. If you check the cranium, you can see one cranium is smaller, the other one is large. And on and on. If you look carefully, if you look at their prognathism, you can actually tell one is more prognathous, the other one is less. And then if you look again, the dentition, that's the canine, you can tell the difference between the two. And then we also have the jaw, okay, the jaw size, which goes with the palate and what we call the prognathism. And then if you look carefully, there is a hole through which the spinal cord enters the brain. So you can actually tell what it is. This one is the foramen magnum. You can see for humans, ours is forward, and for apes, they are backward because of their style of living. So just by looking at these two skulls, you should be able to tell which one is large and which one is small. By looking at the cranium, you can see our cranium size is larger than the cranium size of the ape. And then on top of the cranium, most of the time you see something that looks like a mountain range. We call it a cranial ridge. Ours, we don't even have it because of our change in diet. And then if you look carefully, you can see our face is actually flat. We don't have a snout or what we call a protruding jaw or prognathos. But if you look at this ape, you can see the mouth actually is projected forward. There is a forward protruding of the jaw. Then if you look carefully, you can actually tell the dentition, that's the canine. And then over here, you don't see such a canine there. But we do have a canine, but ours is very small. But then they have a canine, and the canine is very large. If you look at our jaw, if you look at the jaw size of this ape here, it is very well developed, very large and powerful jaw. But then our jaw size, it is very small and it's reduced because of our change in diet. We eat cooked food, but these ones, they eat raw food. They don't cook their food, so they eat very tough food material. They eat animal skin, or they have to crush bones. They have to eat tough muscles that are not cooked, and they have to eat plant parts, the bark or the roots of plant or seeds, hard seeds that needs powerful jaws for crushing them. because we have changed our hunting method and we cook our food and we eat soft foods, our jaws are very small. Here, our foramen magnum is forward in position so that it will provide balancing of our head and of our shoulders. Because we are bipedal, we walk on two legs. It will allow us to see things from afar. And for African apes, if we compare to human, our foramen magnum is backward. It is actually moving back to the head. The reason is most of the time they practice quadrupedalism. They walk on four legs, and they are always eating face down. So this is what we are looking at. And then you see this jaw, even though it's very powerful, it is also less prognathous, and this one is more prognathous. So when a skull is given, you should be able to tell the distinction between the two. So over here, we have to state the anatomical characteristics of the skull that makes humans different from apes. So while such a question is given, here is talking only about the skull. You don't talk about pelvic girdle. You don't talk about arms. You don't talk about the spinal cord. You focus only on the skull because the question is about the skull. So you talk about the skull size, and in this case, you have to draw a table and to make your answering very perfect. Humans have a larger cranium. Apes, theirs are smaller. Then you go to the broad ridge. Ours is smaller or absent. For theirs is prominent and very thick. We talk about cranial ridge, foramen magnum, facial projection or prognathism, palate, and all the answers are here. You have to note how they differ in humans and then also in apes. All right, so you can go to your package. There are some questions there. You can give it a try. Go to the comprehensive package and go to the revision document. Try and answer some questions. Then the adaptive mechanism of evolution of early humans from African apes. So we're going to look at how humans evolved from apes, and we are going to focus on explanations. So we need to identify the change, and then we have to explain, providing reasons for the cause. And this explanation creates the distinction between us and apes, and it explains why we are different. So in terms of movement in apes, within the ape family, there are two types of movement. We have here bipedalism, and then we have quadrupedalism. What is bipedalism? Is the ability to stand erect and walk on two legs in an upright position. And then we have quadrupedalism. It is the ability to stand erect and walk on four legs. Then we need to look at advantages of bipedalism. It allows the hands to freely pick or carry food, to use tools, and to handle weapons. And then it gives a better, wider view of surroundings when searching for food and protection from predators. And then it also makes movement much easier and more energy efficient. So those are the advantages. And this is a depiction of movement in primates. So another word for movement is the word locomotion. So we have position of foramen magnum, we have size of pelvic girdle, we have shape of the spine. So the position of the foramen magnum, the size of the pelvic girdle, and the shape of the spine, they will determine whether you're going to walk on four legs or two legs. So let's see how they play out. For you to walk on two legs, you have to have the following structures in those formats. So first and foremost, for you to walk on two legs, for you to be bipedal, your foramen magnum must be forward in position. Ignore the word centralized. It's not allowed. You don't have to use it. So for you to walk on two legs, foramen magnum must be forward in position. The spine must be S-shaped, and your pelvic girdle must be short and wide. And then, for you to walk on four legs, your foramen magnum must be backward in position, and your spine is supposed to be C-shaped, and your pelvic girdle must be long and narrow. So that is that there. All right, so we have the underside of the skull, and in many cases, you have to be able to determine whether which skull is human or non-human. This black spots, okay, the black spot you are seeing here is what represent the foramen magnum. And then there's another spot here also represent the foramen magnum. This skull represents human. This skull represents non-human. And there are other evidence apart from the position of the foramen magnum. You can tell the shape of the palate is very rectangular, and you can see the presence of large canines. Over here, the shape of the palate is circular, semicircular, and the canines are not well developed. And then you can even tell the cranium, the backside of the cranium is large, the backside of the cranium is smaller. So what do we have here? What we have here is a foramen magnum. For terminology's sake, what is a foramen magnum? A foramen magnum is the hole in the base of the skull where the spinal cord leaves or enters the skull. So the foramen magnum is the hole in the base of the skull where the spinal cord leaves or enters the skull. And then let's do some comparison here. We're going to compare the position of the foramen magnum. So if you look carefully, that is the foramen magnum for human, and that's the foramen magnum for non-human. You can actually tell where they are positioned or where it is positioned in each species. So for humans, the foramen magnum is forward in position. Forward is the word, not centralized. It is forward in position. And then for chimpanzee, the foramen magnum is backward in position. So that is what we have here. That is the distinction. Then we have to explain now that we know the differences, let us provide a short explanation. Explain the consequence or effect of the forward position of the foramen magnum on movement in humans. What is the effect? So here is it, the centralized or forward position of the foramen magnum. It ensures that the skull is balanced on top of the spinal column and hence allowing bipedalism. So that's a simple explanation. Let's look again. Explain the consequence or effect of the backward position of the foramen magnum on movement in African apes. So the backward position of the foramen magnum, it ensures that the head is balanced on the neck and shoulders, and this is crucial or important for maintaining a stable posture for quadrupedalism. So if we put them together, we have humans and apes here. Over now, we'll be looking at the spine and then look at the differences between the two. So over here, for humans, they have S-shaped spine. Our spine, it looks like the letter S. But then for apes, they have C-shaped spine. Their spine resembles the letter C. All right, then we go on. We have S-shaped spine. Now, what is the significance? What's the importance? So, first and foremost, we have it because it provides balance and stability. So, the S-shaped spine provides balance and stability. And this alignment allows for efficient and stable movement on two legs. So that is it. Then we go and talk about the curvature of the spine helps maintain the center of gravity over the pelvis, which is essential for upright posture. But then the most important answer here is the first line here. it talks about the fact that the S-shaped spine, it provides balance and stability. That is all that you need. And then the second reason for our spine being S-shaped is that it also ensures weight distribution. So that is the main focus you need to concentrate on. And then we talk about what about the C-shaped spine? Having S-shaped spine doesn't give you an advantage over those with C-shaped spine. So here's the answer. The C-shaped spine in apes, it promotes locomotion and stability. So that is it. Talking about weight distribution. And then moreover, it also provides postural support. So those are the key answers you need uh, in moving forward. You can also go through the explanation here, but then take note the answers are what is written here. You can read it on to improve your understanding of the concept. Good. Now let's go on to the shape of the spine and the position of the foramen magnum as we conduct a comparative analysis of it. So for humans, our spine is S-shaped and our foramen magnum is forward, not centralized. Don't use the word centralized, use the word forward in position. Then we go on to for apes. Yes, you can actually tell their spine is C-shaped and then the foramen magnum is backward in position. All right. Okay, so we talk about the size and shape of the pelvic girdle in humans and apes. The human pelvis is short and wide. It is able to provide support for vertically stacked human organs. We are looking at the human pelvis. You have to take note of it. So this and then this represents human. So this is purely human. This is purely human. This is a transitional fossil, that is Australopithecus afarensis. Their pelvic girdle is very similar to ours. So the human pelvis is short and wide. It is able to provide support for the vertically stacked human organs. Then we talk about, the last one, which represents chimpanzee. So their pelvis is long and narrow. There is no disadvantage there because it is adapted to quadrupedal knuckle walking, which provides greater rigidity. So that is explanation. There's a reason we have a short and wide pelvis to support our organs, which are vertically stacked. And then for apes that are quadrupedal, their pelvis are long and narrow to provide rigidity for um, quadrupedalism, for quadrupedal movement. All right, then we have some other areas we also have to explore. The hip socket and femur angle for chimpanzee. We have A. So for A, if you look carefully, A does not represent human, represent apes. The shape of the pelvis allows femur to align perpendicularly. You can see the pelvis and then the femur, they are perpendicular to each other or vertical. It is so to provide maximum distribution of load, bearing stability, providing stability and balance. And it also makes quadrupedalism movement easier. What about B? B represents humans. You can actually tell the position or then the angular orientation of the femur. So in humans, the shape of the pelvis allows the femur to be angled inwards Why is our femur positioned at an angle? It is so to provide maximum load bearing, distribution of weight, and also it makes it easier for bipedal movement. Okay, good. All right, so uh, this is one side of it. Now let us zoom closely and explore the other anatomical differences. So we go on to the other anatomical differences, and our explanation is based on a principle. That's a principle of use and disuse uh, proposed by Lamarck. The more a body part is used often, the more developed and efficient it becomes. And the opposite too is true. The less a body part is used, the less developed and less efficient it becomes. So we have scenarios here about the law of use. If you use your hands more often for climbing and swinging, it becomes more efficient. If you eat tough food materials like raw meat and tough plant materials, it will make your jaw and canines larger and well developed. Chewing gums always will make your jaws stronger and well developed. So let's look at something here. So we have the brain and the cranial side. We have to compare the two in the case of humans, Australopithecus, and Homo erectus. So we are actually, what do you call it? Homo sapiens. So if you look closely, it tells us as early humans evolved, the brain grew in size and complexity. Over the course of human evolution, brain size tripled. Humans have a larger brain or cranium size than chimpanzee. So that is the human skull here is way larger than Australopithecus or even chimpanzee. So we need to understand the advantages of having a larger brain. So what are the consequences of an increased cranium and brain size? So here is it. The brain is contained in a part of the skull called the cranium. The larger the cranium size, the larger the brain size. The smaller the cranium size, the smaller the brain size. Humans have a large brain size due to a large cranium size. So this large brain size, it allows greater intelligence since they are able to process information and also to store it. So that is it here. If you look carefully, our brain size is larger than that of apes. Our larger brain allows us to display greater intelligence than apes. All right, then we go on, we progress forward. We look at the explanation again. The fact that the brain is in the cranium, the larger the cranium size, the larger the brain, the smaller the cranium size, the smaller the brain. Humans have a larger brain size because our cranium size is large, and this large brain size allows for greater intelligence. The reason is because humans are able to store and process information. That is it. You can actually tell which skull is human just by looking at it here. That is a human skull. That is Australopithecus. That is a chimpanzee. Check the cranium, way smaller, very big. This one is not too big and not too small, but at least they are more intelligent than chimpanzee. But humans are way more intelligent than chimpanzee. If you compare all the hominids here, you can see in the case of the Gilada, their brain size is very small. For the baboon, the brain size is also small. And the smaller the brain size, the lesser the intelligence. The opposite is also the case. Logically, the opposite also applies. If the cranium is small, the organism becomes less intelligent. If the cranium size is large, that means the brain size is large. That means the organism becomes more intelligent. Then we go on to the broad ridge. So that is the broad ridge here. When we talk about the broad ridge, it is talking about this structure here. And then human beings, it's like as if we have it. It's like we don't even have it. So let's explore the significance. So chimpanzees have a well-developed broad ridge above their eye socket. And then it goes on to talk about in humans, the broad ridges are very small or non-existent. So humans, we don't even have it at all. And what is the reason? The reason is that as humans' cranium increased in size, the forehead flattened and became more vertical. As a result, the human brow ridge slowly became smaller and smaller. So that's the reason why we don't have brow ridge. So this is the explanatory part. Chimpanzees have it, we don't have it. Why don't we have it? This is the explanation. Then we go on to the teeth, jaws, and palate. So let's start here and let's look at the canine. The teeth part, we're going to look at the canine. You have to note that the teeth is rooted inside the upper and lower jaw, and together they are used for feeding. So we're going to seek an explanation for it. So if you look here, what do we have? We have the canines in both humans and chimpanzee. So let's see. Canines of chimpanzees are quite large and pointed for tearing, chewing, and eating raw meat and also tough or hard plant materials. Human canines are way small, they are very small, and the reason because of eating of soft or softer cooked foods. Hence, the need for larger canines and strong jaws to tear and chew food slowly disappeared, leading to the reduction in size we see today. So this is the reason why we are trying to explain why the canines in chimpanzees are large, because they eat raw meat and they eat tough or hard plant material. Why don't we have the same canines as chimpanzees? The reason is because we cook our foods and we eat softer foods, and hence we don't need large canines and strong jaws. And according to Lamarck, the more you use a structure, the well developed it becomes. So over here, because we don't need large canines and strong jaws for tearing and chewing food, those structures they slowly disappeared and they were eventually reduced in size, like we see today. Good. Then we have jaws, we have protruding jaws and prognators. So what's the meaning of the word prognathos? It simply means protruding jaw. The jaws of chimpanzee and apes protrude forward beyond a vertical line through the eye. Hence, chimpanzees have more protruding jaws or more prognathous jaws, and by comparison, humans have relatively small jaws that are less protruding and less prognathous. So remember here, it spoke about a vertical line through the eye socket. Here he said the jaws of chimpanzee and apes protrude forward beyond a vertical line through the eye. So if you take the human eye, that's the human eye, if you draw a line there, you can actually look at the position of the jaw. You can see it is under the eye socket. This is the jaw, and the jaw is well positioned under the eye socket. You can't say the same about chimpanzee. This is the eye socket, and you can see the jaw, majority of the jaw, most of the jaws are in front of this line. This is a line for chimpanzee. This is a line for human being. So that's what is said here. So human beings, we have relatively small jaws. Our jaws are small if you compare it here, and they are less prognathous. They are less protruding. They don't move forward like this jaw, which is actually forward. Then we have cranial ridge and prognathos. So let's look at cranial ridge, very important. So in this chart, we have ape here. You can see this thick muscle. It is also called chewing muscles. They are involved in chewing. It allows the lower jaws to move up and down like you are seeing it here. These muscles are attached to a structure on top of the cranium. We call it the cranial ridge like you are seeing here. That's a cranial ridge for gorilla or for apes. They are well developed. This cranial ridge provide a surface for attachment of chewing muscles. Animals with cranial ridge automatically they have powerful jaws and they also have powerful canines. If you look at human beings, you can see we also have chewing muscles, but they are not as developed as the ones in apes, like the chewing muscles in apes. So our chewing muscles they are relatively small. If you look at it here, they are connected to the jaw. You can see our jaw is very small in size, and causing the chewing muscles also to become small in size. Here, the jaw is very large in size. The chewing muscle is also large, and there's a limit to where the chewing muscles can go. It doesn't go all the way up the cranium. It just ends on the side of the cranium. But here, the muscle go all the way to the top to attach itself to the cranial ridge. And the reason is because, one, in evolutionary development of modern humans, with a change in diet, okay, to cooked foods, it made it easier to chew. Hence, their jaws became much smaller, and they no longer needed large jaws or chewing muscles. So that's the reason why we don't have a large jaws and we don't have large chewing muscles. So here it continues to say, because we no longer needed large jaws and chewing muscles, the cranial ridge, our cranial ridge that we had millions of years ago, they became redundant. Redundant means they became disused and then eventually they disappeared. Remember, explaining evolution involves the application of Lamarck's theory, the law of use and disuse only. That is the only law that is applicable here. So the more you use your jaw muscles, the lighter it becomes. If you don't use it, it becomes disused and becomes redundant. Let's move on to another structure. So we go on to this. Explain the consequence of diet on canine, cranial ridge, and progenitor size in modern humans. So we are going to focus on in early humans, talking about early humans. So early humans represent apes, the early apes, chimpanzee, and the other early hominids. So here is the explanation. A larger canine and a well-developed cranial ridge and a well-developed jaw size or progenitors means a stronger bite force. So what else does it say? Species with larger jaw size also has a well-developed canine and cranial ridge with a stronger chewing muscles, just like the species below. So the key here is subspecies for them to have, for the reason why they have large jaws and powerful cranial ridge is because they mostly feed on tough or hard animal or plant materials. Example, roots, leather, bones, muscle, tough muscles, branches of trees and tree bark. They don't cook their food, they eat it raw. Hence, you need a larger jaw size and a well-developed canine and cranial ridge for tearing them. Now let's look at the other side. What about the explanation for the consequence of diet on the canine, cranial ridge, and progenitor size in modern humans? So now we are talking about human beings. We're going to look at the effect of the food early humans ate on the size of the canine, cranial ridge, and progenitors. So here is a catch again. A smaller canine and a less developed cranial ridge and a jaw size, it also means a weaker bite force. The stronger the jaw, the stronger the bite force. So species with smaller jaw size or less progenitor species automatically possesses a less developed cranial ridge and canine. So it goes on to say such species mostly feeds on soft or cooked animal or plant materials like root, leather, bones, muscle. They are eating the same thing similar to what early humans ate, except that they are cooked. So humans, we have a larger cranium, which gives us intelligence to cook our food. Hence, we don't need powerful jaws and powerful chewing muscles and a powerful cranial ridge to actually feed. It is not necessary. And then let's look at this contextual question. It's an application. Explain how the transformation in the cranium had on the feeding habits, canine, cranial ridge, and jaw size in the evolution of modern humans. So this is a simple question with a simple answer. So here is the answer. 1. The brain is contained in the cranium, hence a larger cranial size means a larger brain size, and thus allow for greater intelligence. The greater intelligence of modern humans influenced its feeding habit as it resorted or switched to cooking its food, plant or animal material. That is, they cook the food with fire before consuming it. Cooking food with fire made it softer, hence the consumption of cooked food, that is softer food materials, did not require larger and a well-developed cranial ridge. The jaws, that is the prognators, and the canines, making them smaller and less developed. So because humans cook their food, they don't need larger and a well-developed cranial ridge. They don't need a larger and a well-developed jaw. They don't also need a larger and a well-developed canines. Because we don't need them, these cranial ridge, these jaws and canines, they eventually became smaller and smaller, and they became less developed. Well, there's a question here. You can give it a try. Try and go through it and answer it. Spend about 15 minutes. Try and work it out from memory. And when you are done, you check the answer in the next slide. So the diagram below shows the skulls of two species of primates, skull A and skull 1 and skull 2. Now tabulate 3 observable differences between skull 1 and skull 2 that show trends in human evolution. That is question 311. 312, give 4 characteristics of the upper limbs that humans share with other primates for 4 marks. And then explain how increase in cranial volume is related to intelligence. So over here, take note, the names of the skulls are not given, but you have to know which skull is human, which skull is not human. Try your hands on it, answer it, and here are the answers. Anytime you have to draw, you have to state the differences between two things, you have to draw a table. Anytime you draw a table, you're going to get 1 free mark. Then, the next question, 321, what is meant by bipedalism? 322, explain how each of the following skeletal structures contribute to bipedalism in humans. So you have A, foramen magnum, B, pelvic girdle, and C, spine. Then 3.3, describe the process of speciation through geographic isolation for 6 marks. That is something good. For this question, go to your examination guide. You'll find the process of speciation, and then go back through the notes. You'll be able to explain how each of the following skeletal structures have contributed to bipedalism. Okay, so we go in here. The first question was define what is bipedalism, and here we are. Bipedalism means walking on 2 legs, and this explains the contribution of the foramen magnum, pelvic girdle, and the spine to bipedalism. And then we continue to look at 3.3. This is the description of the process of speciation. Now, Let's look at the consequences of an increased cranium and brain size in humans. Consequences of an increased cranium and brain size in humans. The brain is contained in a part of the skull called cranium, and then the larger the cranium size, the larger the brain size. The smaller the cranium size, the smaller the brain size. Humans have a larger brain size due to a large cranium size. And this allows greater intelligence since they are able to process and store information. We went through this already. So what we have here, we'll be looking at cultural evidence, and this is an example of cat marks left by humans 2 million years ago. It was actually created by Homo habilis. These marks were not left behind by carnivores. These were left behind by humans because the shape here, it does not match the canines of carnivore. These are two marks or cat marks left behind by Homo habilis. So let's look at cultural evidence and how does it support human evolution. A very important aspect of human evolution, one that separates human from other hominids, is the ability to develop and also use tools. Two other aspects of culture that had a significant impact on human evolution are: the first one is the control of fire, that is being able to make fire to provide warmth, to allow for the cooking of food and contribute to social cohesion. This evolution was largely influenced by the development of a larger cranial size leading to a larger brain size. The larger brain size translated into greater intelligence, which also resulted in the development and the use of tools and the invention of fire. These also influence their diet through the consumption of protein-rich food, since through social cohesion, they were able to form hunting packs. So it is trying to explain how humans invented culture through the development and the use of tools. And humans were able to develop and or invent tools, and the reason is because of their larger cranium size, because they had a larger brain size. They were very, very intelligent. Because the larger the brain, the larger the intelligence. The more intelligent you are, the greater the ability of you developing and using tools. If you're not intelligent, you can't use tools. You can't make tools. And if you're intelligent, once you can make tools, you can also invent fire. With the invention of fire, now you can actually warm yourself, you can actually cook food, and it contributes to the creating of society or social cohesion. As mankind became more intelligent, they were able to get more meat to eat, and the reason is because they were able to hunt well. They hunted as a group, and the more you hunt well, using uh, well-developed tools, you are able to get a lot of meat to eat. And once you get a lot of meat, meat is rich in protein, and you're able to cook it. Yes, your brain will continuously grow and become larger and larger. So that is the explanation, the exploration for this particular area. And here are some of the tools invented by humans as they were evolving. These were not created by nature. They were actually designed by humans because they became more and more intelligent as their brain size began to increase in, in volume. They began to also make tools. So if you look here, we have the evolution of the invention of tools. This is time, and this is increasing complexity. You can see that these two and these two, they don't look the same. These are specially made tools, and this tool here is an improvement on this one. So this tool was made by Odowan, that's the Homo habilis, the handyman, some 2.6 million years ago. And as time went by, they improved. The tools became well developed because they wanted to make something that can be used for cutting. This one doesn't look sharp. This one looks well developed. And this tool was made some 1.5 million years ago by Homo erectus. And the brain size of Homo habilis is smaller than Homo erectus, or the cranium of Homo erectus is larger than Homo habilis. So Homo erectus is more intelligent than Homo habilis because you can see their tools are well developed than the one invented by Homo habilis. But as you move forward, you discover that Homo sapiens, we human beings, we have invented better tools. Our tools are way more better as time went on, some 250,000 years ago. But then around 50,000 years ago, our tools became very, very, very well developed or very complicated. And for you to invent such a tool, you must have a larger cranium. You must be more intelligent to do so. In other words, Homo sapiens are more intelligent than Homo erectus because their tools are more complicated or more complex. It is well invented, it's very advanced, technologically advanced. And Homo erectus, they are more intelligent than Homo habilis because their tools are not well advanced. Explain how the invention of tools had on brain size in the evolution of modern humans. So here are the answers. So you can actually tell the greater intelligence of modern humans as a result of increasing brain size influenced and greatly improved its hunting skill, since they developed complex tools and weapons for hunting animals. As a result, their feeding habits also changed, since they switched or resorted to consuming more meat, which they cooked with fire before consuming it. The consumption of more meat greatly increased their protein intake, which is required for brain development. Hence, their brain size increased greatly. The question is asking, explain how the invention of tool had on size. That is the effect of tool invention on brain size. Did the invention of tool increase the brain size? That is the question, and that is the answer. The greater the intelligence, the more the species will be able to invent complex tools. We go on to look at some other things. We also have here cultural evidence, and we have tools for making art also, and how they contributed. So this is actually an artwork found inside a cave. Now, what is the purpose of art? So here are the reasons: is for bonding individuals together to sustain relationship for greater reproductive success, and also to promote spirituality. Explain how early humans invented tools. It follows the same procedure. Everything depends on the brain size. So the invention of early humans was influenced by the development of larger cranial size, leading to larger brain size. Larger brain size translated into greater intelligence, which also resulted in the development of simple artwork such as rock paintings, which they did to reflect their social life through evolutionary period. So the larger the cranial size, the larger the brain size, the more intelligent the organism becomes. If the organism becomes more intelligent, then they can create such things like this. If you're not intelligent, you can't draw this, you can't design this. This thing was not designed on paper, it was designed inside a cave on a rock. It was designed by the Sun people. So you need to be more intelligent to do this. And modern humans, due to their larger cranial size, they were able to do that. Then we look at the consequences of an increased cranium and brain size in humans. Again, we go on to the same thing. At the end of the day, the larger the cranium, the larger the brain size, this allows greater intelligence since they're able to process and store information. So here ends the explanation part. Let's go on to the last part where we're going to look at the fossil sites. And you need to know the fossil site according to the exams guide. You have to know the fossil site for Adipithecus, Australopithecus, and the Homo genus. And then you have to also know the age and the timeline, as well as the size, and then the scientists who discovered them To do so, you have to go to the Mind the Gap textbook, page 76, and that is where you will find the information. So, question: state and explain the evidence that support the idea of common ancestors for living hominids. So we have fossil evidence. How does it support evolution? Fossil evidence, evidence from fossils of different ages, they show that the similarities in anatomical characteristics of organisms, they change gradually over time. So we have here the visual timeline according to the exams guide. You have to know when they existed. Adipithecus existed around 5.8 to 4.4 million years ago. Australopithecus around 4.2 to 2.0 million years ago. Homo habilis 2.8 to 1.5 million years ago. Homo erectus 1.9 to 143,000 years ago. Homo sapiens, we appeared around 300,000 years ago, and we are still existing. We existed around this time, and we continue to exist till now. So here is a chart that tried to display the visual timeline showing the time range for major hominid genera. So we have the genus Adipithecus, genus Australopithecus, genus Homo habilis, and Homo erectus and Homo sapiens. So here is where it starts, here is where it ends, meaning they appeared around this time and they disappeared, they went extinct around this time. And then for Australopithecus, they appeared around this time, and they disappeared around this time. Note that time flows in this direction. So as we move from 6 to 0, we come to the present era, and everything is measured in millions of years ago. So for Homo habilis and Australopithecus, there seems to be a relationship between them, because Homo habilis and Australopithecus appearances, they existed around the same time. Though Australopithecus existed and evolved, appeared and existed way before Homo habilis, they all existed together around this period, which is between 2 million and then 2.8 million years ago. And then we have here these three groups, they all existed side by side. Homo erectus existed around this time with Homo habilis, and then Homo habilis existed around this time with with Australopithecus. When Australopithecus became extinct, Homo habilis still existed at that time. After some few years, Homo erectus appeared on the scene. Homo habilis became extinct between 1 million and 2 million years ago. That is how you measure it. And then before their extinction, Homo erectus appeared around 1.9 million years ago. And they remained there. They remained around. They were around for a long time until around 300,000 years ago when Homo sapiens existed. In other words, Homo sapiens and Homo erectus, they live at the same time. However, Homo erectus existed alongside Homo habilis and Homo sapiens. And at one point, Homo erectus was living side by side with Homo sapiens and Homo habilis. So here is a basic explanation on the chart that you just saw. Adipithecus lived around 5.8 to 4.4 million years ago based on the chart. That is the oldest genus on the chart. It is considered a transitional species between apes and later hominins, and it lived before Australopithecus. Australopithecus lived around 4.2 million to 2.0 million years ago. It evolved after Adipithecus and coexisted briefly with early Homo habilis, and they represent key to development in upright walking. For you to walk bipedalism, it started with Australopithecus. They started walking on two legs. They started it. Homo habilis lived 2.8 million to 1.5 million years ago. The first Homo species overlapped with late Australopithecus, used simple tools, and then we have Homo erectus existing around 1.9 to 143,000 years ago, lived alongside early Homo species for a time, first hominin to leave Africa, They started the out of Africa migration. And then we have Homo sapiens. Modern humans appeared around 20,000 years ago. They coexisted for a time with Homo erectus until Homo erectus became extinct. Now, the only extant means the only living human species are the Homo sapiens. Then we go to the key fossil site, which we need to know. Some are located in Gauteng. They're actually located in Gauteng, South Africa. That's also called the cradle of mankind. We have Stekfontein. That's where they found Australopithecus africanus. We have Swartkrans. That's where they found early Homo species and Paranthropus. We have Kromdraai. That's where they found the Paranthropus and the Robustus. We have the Malapa caves. That's where they found Australopithecus sediba. Then we have the Rising Star Cave where they found Homo naledi. These areas together has yielded over 40% of known early human fossils worldwide. That is talking about their global importance. So this is a table highlighting the fossil, the species, the site, and the scientists who discovered them, including the year in which they were discovered. So we have the town child called Australopithecus africanus. It was found in Taung, discovered by Raymond Dart around 1924. These are multiple choice questions or written questions, something you can't ignore. We have Mr. Place, Australopithecus africanus. It was found in the Stekfontein cave, discovered by the following scientists, Robert Broom and J.T. Robinson around 1947. Then we have also Littlefoot, okay, which was also discovered uh, some years later. And over here we have fossil sites in South Africa. You need to know this chart very well. You have to know the names and add it to what you already know. And then we have the importance of the cradle of mankind, which is essential anyway. It enables us to actually do more research. Here it displays what was located and what was discovered there, where Australopithecus africanus was found at the Stekfontein cave in 1936. It was a complete skeleton, and a virtually complete skeleton was found later in 1997. And it was 1 million years from 3 to 2 million years ago in terms of the age range. Paranthropus robustus found at Kromdraai in 1938, and subsequently again found another fossil was found at Swartkrans, and this species has only been found in South Africa. We have the Homo erectus. The first fossils were found by Robert Broom at Swartkrans, and then we have the Stekfontein. That is the first and the only association of Homo erectus with early stone tools such as the handman. This takes us to out of Africa hypothesis. And what does it say? It states that the modern humans originated in Africa and then migrated to other continents. So that is where everything started from. You follow the route and you can tell where they went. The smaller the age, the younger the migration. So the migration began around 150,000 to 100,000 years ago, and some actually migrated to some part of Australasia around 1,000 years ago. You can actually tell some uh, as as near as 1,400 years ago. Now we need to also know the evidence supporting out of Africa hypothesis. We have genetic evidence, and then we have fossil evidence. These are the two evidence that supports out of Africa hypothesis. Then we need to look at the genetic evidence. We have here um, the fact that scientists, species are closely related, and species that are closely related, they have greater genetic similarities to each other than distant species. and therefore they share more recent common ancestor. However, for fossil record, scientists or evolutionists, they compare the fossils of the same species from different era or different species from different era, and then they look for similarities and differences. Similarities suggest they came from a common ancestor. Then we have to look at some of the fossil evidence of that's of early fossils that support out of Africa hypothesis, like Adipithecus fossils and Australopithecus fossils and Homo habilis fossils. They're only found in Africa. And the oldest of Homo erectus were found in Africa, while the younger fossils of Homo erectus were found in other parts of the world. The oldest fossil of Homo erectus of Homo sapiens were found in Africa, whilst the younger fossils of Homo sapiens were found in other parts of Africa. In terms of mitochondrial DNA, we have, in terms of genetic evidence, we have mitochondrial DNA, but in terms of mitochondrial DNA, they are used as genetic evidence in support of out of Africa hypothesis. Analysis of mutations in mitochondrial DNA, it shows that the oldest female ancestors of humans, they all came from Africa. So here is trying to explain why mtDNA, mitochondrial DNA, are more reliable in determining genetic ancestry than nuclear DNA. So the basic answer, the main answer is captured here. Okay, it states that mitochondrial DNA is passed on chain from mother to offspring. So, however, during a person's life, mutations or changes to the mtDNA do occur. Scientists can determine the rate at which such mutations or markers take place, and then they can use them as a type of molecular clock to determine the age of a particular maternal DNA, maternal mitochondrial DNA lineage. All right. So, in conclusion, uh, we have the other fossil sites in Africa, and then I will advise you to set your note for it. And this is where we bring the whole lesson to an end. Thank you very much for this marathon presentation on human evolution.